And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to the Reasonably Fine Art Talk. Today, December 20th, 2023. And joining us today is, well, in the background, pulling those strings, keeping us on the straight and level, is the great Betty Sue down there in Austin, Texas. I'm up here in Bellows Falls, Vermont. And joining us is dear friend Larry Moore, who's in South Carolina or some damn place. Where are you, Larry?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And we are today, we're going to remember dear friend, Mr. Randy Sexton.
Yeah.
So Larry, talk to us.
Well, I think this is obviously we're here to remember a marvelous human being and maybe why he was so wonderful and beloved. If you were paying any attention at all and you're friends with if you're an artist or have artist friends, you may have seen all the remembrances that have been posted about Randy and the conversations. And he was beloved. He was just that guy that you see on the screen. That was him. He was just happy, smiling. He was a great friend to me. We hung out a lot together. We painted together. We talked about life stuff a lot, but we mostly laughed about things. And that was kind of our major bond, was just laughing about how ridiculous everything is.
How'd you get to know him, Larry? He was born in 1958.
Yeah.
He grew up in Connecticut.
Yeah, that's right.
Out to he got a degree at University of Connecticut.
Yeah.
He headed out to California. He taught out there a lot.
Yeah. I asked Scott Pryor, a friend of mine, and he taught at the Academy of Art in San Francisco. Plus, he taught a lot of workshops around the country. He was I can't even tell you how many people have written me because of a post that I did that, I met him in a workshop and he was a great teacher. And he was a great teacher because he was a caring human being.
Right. And where did you first meet him?
Well, I did my first plein air event in big league plein air event, I would say, in Carmel in 2002, maybe three. And I was just there, kind of a babe in the woods, literally. But there was Randy Sexton. I didn't meet him then, but I saw his work, and I was so overwhelmed with how good he was. I was afraid to go up and talk to him. Fast forward, because I'm just chicken shit. But fast forward a couple of years later, he and I got invited to do an event in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we got put into a house with 6 other artists. It was a huge house. And we had time to kill, and we started watching movies, and he introduced me to Napoleon Dynamite.
Right. Which you said you did not find funny, and he made you watch it again.
Yeah, he made me watch it again. He goes, "No, it's funny. Watch it again." And then I watch it again, and I go, "Oh, yeah, it was funny." And then we started talking about life and how we grew up and the similarities between us. And we just found that from then on, we were brothers from another mother.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we could cross paths, and we did often, thanks to this glorious world of the plein air movement, there were all these events around the country, and he and I got invited to a lot of the same events. So immediately we're just hanging out, painting together. Some drinking may have been done, here and there. But we just had a great time. I have to excuse myself because I got a cat, believe it or not, who's trying to get out.
Oh, that's what that noise is. All
Yes.
right. All right. Well, I'm going to go to the next slide while you're taking.
Yeah, go to the next slide. By the way, speaking of cats, that's Kula, who adopted him in Maui. Oh, thanks.
Did he take Kula home?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, really? Oh, Kula. Yeah.
Kula.
So,
all right. So
So wait a minute. Larry has put together this slideshow. It's not in any way comprehensive, but if anybody who's watching today, has a remembrance or a thought, post it. Betty Sue will throw it up on the screen if she can see it. One problem with StreamYard is the various places where it's being shown are in individual silos, so it's hard to see if we're getting everything. But if you've got a thought, put it up there, and we'll try to get to it. So what's the story on this one?
I first thing I thought was, I was going to gather images for this, and I thought, well, I'll just go to his his Facebook page because he and go through his images and see who he had pictures of, who he was with. This one came up, and I assume it was attributed to this woman, Tanya Copper, and she had done a couple of images of him, photographs of him, and she's a remarkable photographer. And I just loved this painting was just so perfect for him, and it shows the sort of the inner complexity of the artist, and it was just a beautiful shot. So I put that one in there.
All right, that's now this shows sort of the lighter side.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, it's mostly the lighter side. I mean, if there was one side to Randy that pretty much wrapped around the entire form of Randy, it is the lighter side.
And was this, now we know that Terry Mura, who's top
Yes.
center there, Terry
Yeah.
Mura at plein air events takes pictures where he makes all of us look as miserable as possible.
Yes.
And then snaps black and white photos.
Yeah.
Was having a blonde wig being worn?
Yeah, I wish I could give you the story behind this one, but I don't know it.
Oh, okay. It's very disturbing.
It is.
All right. So yes, well, I mean, that's one of the beauties of this plein air world is that we're all, you know, I was not close to Randy. I mean, I basically know Randy from the Entraîneur and a few events, but even though I didn't know him well and am not a intimate friend, there's still this bond that immediately gets formed if you're in the world of painters.
Yeah, and I think that's a side story that's worth mentioning here. I have so many friends, as I'm sure you do, who are more than acquaintances, who came from this world of painting, and the travel to paint places on site, deadline kind of oriented painting events, that we all bonded over this kind of communal event, which it was. And I can't even tell you how many friends, like real friends, people that if I actually needed money or something, I could call them and
Right.
you know, ask, or needed help of any kind. And so that's the real gift of all of this. And I would have never known Randy or you or Scott Christensen or Scott Pryor and Deb Hughes. I can name like 1,000 people who are really dear friends, and all of these people loved this guy. They just because he was a goofball, and he was fearless, way more fearless than me, I would say.
Is this some more goofballs?
Yeah, there's more goofballs.
We're gonna get into that fearless bit in a minute when we get to the motorcycle painting. But
yeah. Well, there's the upper left is the Plein Air Painters of America, which Randy was a member, a very prestigious group. And for maybe a year or two, I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to be in with that bunch of people? And I could go through. I recognize Gil Dellinger, Matt Smith, Jesse Powell, and a couple of guys in the middle I should know. Maybe Skip Whipcomb is in there somewhere. And so those are, in our little world of plein air painting, these are the big dogs, and he was one of those big dogs. And then there's down below, there's Brenda Boylan, K-Mac, Kevin McPherson, the great Kevin, and then of course Randifferous, Randallford, and just various shots of Randy and me and Shelby, who was on our train trip, goofing around, and a day painting with Deb Hughes and Randy Sexton on the upper right-hand corner in this gorgeous house overlooking the Pacific and the island of Lanai, which is across the way. Just, you couldn't ask for better memories, couldn't ask for better experiences.
Right, and that's another one of the profound one of the unexpected gifts of being part of this community.
Yeah,
is I'm sure you remember every single one of those days when you are painting with someone.
Oh yeah.
There's something unforgettable about it. That's part of the sadness right now
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
I look at photos of events I was at with Randy or the on plein air thing. I remember what the day felt like, you know.
Yes. Yeah. That's the glory of the, I can pick up a painting and have all the memories, the emotions, feelings that are attached to it. As I was explaining to you before we started, I was just contacted by Lahaina for the a fundraising effort, and they wanted to use some images of mine from Lahaina, from this Islanders paint out. And I realized there's 3 paintings, like, oh, I painted every one of those with Randy.
Uh-huh.
He said, "Oh, I know a great spot." And so we'd go there and we'd paint. And then at lunchtime, we'd go and have a couple of Icotonics, and then we'd go back out again. And we'd spend the entire time together. And that was true of a lot of places we painted together, Sedona and uh, Laguna, Sonoma. It's weird. You just touch a painting that you've painted with someone, and not only is it the experience of the moment, but it was the bond of the person that you're with, and then the thread of the bond that runs through your entire life with somebody.
Right.
It's pretty remarkable. It's way more than an iPhoto will do, or the good old fashioned, print image would ever do.
Well, let's talk about his work a little bit because it really was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Uh,
One of the things I learned from him, and not, I wouldn't say directly in that he never ever gave me advice. He never said, you know what you should do. But just painting alongside of him, when I say he was fearless, one of the things I had this system of painting where I would, it was a real structured system. Do the drawing, get a value structure, mix my colors, blah, blah, blah. And he didn't do that. He would just start mopping in stuff, and if things weren't working out, he would just scrape them off and rebuild. And he had this sort of process of destruct and construct and destruct again and build it up, which I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. I mean, if I got a drawing right on something, I'd be like scared to death to screw it up. But then I realized, no, you can always put it back. You got it there once. And so his paintings have this fluidity to them. And this, I think, there's this whole lost edge, broken edge movement. And I think he was kind of one of the earlier exhibitors of that trade in painting of broken edge, lost edge, but it was authentic. It wasn't a contrivance. He just, it was part of his process of scraping and repainting.
But it's interesting to hear you say that about his mopping that stuff on and then scraping it off. And
Yeah.
Because 2 things. One, when I try to do that, I end up with mud because my
Well, you start with mud, Charlie. Come on.
that's what I just stay with mud. But no, but warms and cools and lights and darks getting scraped together, and oh, that's in the wrong place. I end up with muck. And to
Yeah.
see something as brilliant as what we're looking at here,
Yeah.
you look at that picture, and I mean, that's just a masterclass in edges.
Yes.
Having that totally sharp edge in the dead center,
Yeah.
and then losing the edges up at the top, and the warms and cools. I mean, that's some close observation going on there.
And it's needless to say, I think, with super advanced thinking in the painting process. It's early on, we just like, well, I got this picture painted correctly, and I got the flower painted correctly, and all the parts are there. But this is beyond that. All of his paintings were this way, and he knew how to really. He engaged all the components of art, from edge to color, to surface, to in such a way that most people, I don't know that they perceive the subtle nuances. And it's a difference between good and great. I would just say that. I could sum it up that way. And he was just effortlessly great
Right.
at what he did.
On that little film that Jen Whalen did of the on plein air with the Ghost on a Train song in the background, there's a clip of Randy painting a locomotive in Lamy, New Mexico, and he's just putting the assurance with which each mark is going down is just breathtaking. And after seeing that film, I contacted him and said, "Do you still have that painting? Because I'd kind of like to buy it." He's like, "Oh, that one went face down in the parking lot." So it doesn't exist. But Yeah, he was a striking painter in how the confidence with which he would work.
Yeah. And I never saw him with any angst or agita over the whole painting thing. I'd be mid midweek in a painting event, I'd be ready to pack it up and go home. And he just didn't give a shit. He was in it for the fun and to produce good work. And when I first saw his work in Carmel in 2002 or 3, I was blown away by the fact that he didn't go for the pretty things. He
Right.
went for the working stuff. He'd go out to the fields and get the aggro mechanical gizmo things and paint those. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could do that either. So,
But was it you or was it someone else who said they went on a hiking trip where they hiked for like 2 days and got to where they were hiking and everyone started painting the mountains and Randy started painting the saddle.
no, that wasn't me. But that sounds like him. We did me and Billy O'Donnell did a pack trip, not a pack trip, a camp trip to Big Sur, which was, I mean, for me, it was just like I'm in heaven. I'm with two guys I really love. They're super funny and they laugh at everything and they're great painters, both of them very different. And we just went out and battled the elements because you know how windy you can get there. But it was just fantastic trip. So many funny things. Oh, here's some examples. That bottom painting, right? Who would ever think to do that? And this is, I don't know what year this was.
Well, Nancy says it was Paul Crowder who has that memory of Randy starting to paint the saddle, I guess. So, okay.
Yeah. And he would just, the thing I was liked about him is he wouldn't go for the obvious stuff. He would simply focus in on the things that interested him. Very authentic. The machinery, he had a real passion. I had to make sure I included at least a couple paintings of, he loved vintage cars, loved them. And I think I was actually with him with that VW bus. I know exactly where that is. And he took me there because of friends of his owned the restaurant. I want to say it was in Laguna, but they also own this VW bus, which he painted a lot. But he had a real fixation for motorcycles and vintage cars. And he could just paint them lights out from scratch. Not a lot of drawing, just shapes. He was just a draw by shape kind of a dude,
Right. Well, the painting of the agricultural machinery on the bottom there,
yeah,
I think is interesting both compositionally,
yeah,
and the fact that it shows the migrant workers, which is not, in our, there are a lot of pretty paintings made in our world, and it's really nice. It's nice to see him stretching, subject matter and content.
Yeah, and he was an influence on me in that way. We develop a picture of what we think is expected sometimes in the early stages, and we go, well, I guess that's what I'm doing. And then you see someone who's not doing that at all and winning. Not that, winning is always nice. We like to win, but to be recognized, maybe is a better way to put it, for these unusual points of view. And the idea of being authentic out there, even in this realm of painting things to look like things, of representational, is to what are you bringing to the table? And you could recognize him a mile away.
Yeah.
And that's the hallmark of authenticity, is to be recognizable from a distance, not only in stylistically, but in terms of content.
Right.
And also a tremendous figurative painter. And I don't think you could ask him to pick between the two. I'm not a big figurative painter because I don't like people, but that's a joke. I mean, I like some people. Obviously, I like Randy and I like Charlie. And I see Scott Pryor made a comment. I like him a ton. Yeah, there's a lot of people here.
Happy birthday, Scott Pryor.
Yeah.
Let's take a little break and sing happy birthday to Scott Pryor tunelessly and loudly. Everyone out there in internet land, join Larry and Betty Sue and me. Betty Sue will be singing
Betty Sue,
but she's behind the scenes, so we won't hear her. All right. Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Pryor.
Happy
Happy birthday
to you. You and many more.
Yes. All right. But yeah, look at that.
I
Look at
can't
that.
believe
The
thanks
brush.
for making me do that. Yeah. Thank you, Connie. Connie says thank you.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, his ability to paint, he's one of those guys who could paint anything. Uh, well, and there's a huge difference between painting a figure and painting a barn.
Mhm.
Very huge. And you can screw up a barn and no one's going to know, but you cannot screw up the figure because everybody's going to know.
Right.
And he's just fluid is the best definition of his work. And there's a freedom that he embodied both in personality and in his painting that I think that was just like intermeshed,
Mhm.
that you can't help but admire. And uh, I'm going to miss all of that.
Right.
So
Now, most of his work that I recollect seeing, and it may primarily be because my major experience with him was on plein air. I think of his work as being fairly small. Did he do large paintings as well as?
yeah, I think there's a picture of him in the studio towards the end of this, and you'll see behind him a larger painting. He did some. He yeah, these are just more like some of his quasi figurative pieces. The Buddha, he had a real thing for the Buddha at the Buddha Center, whatever they call those things in
Probably,
Lahaina.
they probably call him a temple. I would.
Yeah, the Buddha place, the Buddha store,
With
is
the,
the temple, if you will. Okay, Buddha Mart. And so every year he would be there, and I'd go and join him until I got tired of painting Buddhas. Um, and that horse, which is a toy horse, and behind it, which is such a genius little idea, behind the horse is a painting, a landscape painting that he did.
uh,
And so it's such a clever little twist. You go, oh, I see. There's a horse in the landscape. No, it takes a second to figure it out. No, wait, that's not right. He's standing in front of a flat thing. Wait a minute, he's shiny. So he was a clever guy. He was a real smart, creative individual, as opposed to just a copyist, if you will. And
right.
then he would take these like little life, slice of life scenes, like the hair cuttery barbershop thing,
Uh,
and
Second, so Prudence says Randy had some large abstracts in the gallery in California.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And continue. I interrupted you there.
Yeah, that's it. And so, yeah, he could work as well large as he did small. I remember, I don't know if I have images. I may have one in the next slide, but he went to Cuba basically by himself as an artist, back before you could really do that, to get in. I want to say it was like 5 or 8 years before Eric took this group of
Right.
100 people, and of which I was one, to Cuba. Randy had already been, and he did a whole body of work on that, which was brilliant because who who knew what that even looked like?
Right. Right.
Um,
Oh, those are magnificent paintings.
yeah.
On the barbershop painting, though, let's just look at that for a second.
Hmm.
The way he goes from the depth that he gets.
Yeah.
It's a flat surface. It's probably a fairly small space that he is depicting,
Yeah.
and yet it has so much depth, and it's so beautifully constructed. And those little jewel-like dabs of the aqua,
Yeah.
it's not affected, but it's so effective.
Yeah.
Uh,
One of the things I would say about how he painted is he painted the way the eye actually sees, which is whatever you're looking at, um, something is in focus and everything else is peripheral. Everything's a suggestion. And so somewhere along the line, he got this notion that you could direct the eye by literally painting the way we look at things, which is only certain things are in focus at any given time, rather than whatever I'm looking at's in focus, so I better put that in great detail, right? So
mhm.
he's suggestive of everything around the primary object, and that's what he does in all of his work. That when you go back and take a look, he really does control the eye with his painting.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, now we're getting on to Entraîneur.
yeah.
So explain a little about Entraîneur, Larry.
Well, as you might recall, Charlie, you and I had a conversation, and it was a simple question. I go, Charlie, is it possible to take a train, get a couple of artists and get on a train and go somewhere and just paint things? And he's like, Charlie goes, yes, it is. And that's all I said. And then Charlie figured the whole thing out.
Yeah, I
And
remember because I barely knew you then. I'd had one very funny dinner with you at Forgotten Coast,
yeah.
but you called up. I was down at Betty Sue's in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Called up and said, you know, I hear tell you know something about trains.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
your idea was to ride a train one stop down the line each day.
Yeah.
It dovetailed perfectly with a issue on rail advocacy that I was involved in at the time, which was that the former airline heads of this, I'll just sidetrack for a second. The heads of Amtrak, they're all now ex-airline people, and they don't see the purpose of long-distance trains, and they were trying to discontinue the Chicago to LA train. And the section that we traveled, they at that time were proposing to substitute a bus between Dodge City, Kansas, and Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so we stopped at 5 little towns between La Junta, Colorado, and Winslow, Arizona, and painted in each one. And that became Entraîneur. And now I'm trying to remember how we chose the artists, but I mean, Randy was part of it.
Yeah, he was like the first, first round draft pick, I think.
Like everybody we asked ended up being the first round, all agreed.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. They were all first round draft picks. I didn't mean to imply that any of them weren't, but I think he was the first one whose name came up.
I think so. Yeah.
Because, I knew him very well, and I think you did too. And then Shelby, Amy.
And Jason.
Yeah, Jason. And, I got to say, I didn't know what I was asking you at the time, but it turned out to be probably one of the biggest life-changing trips for me in terms of how I viewed the country. And from that trip on, I was like, hey, to everybody, you need to get on a train and go see the country.
Correct.
And it was a magnificent trip.
There we are in the sightseer lounge car on the top photo. And Randy, I think we're crossing the Mississippi there.
Yeah.
And Randy is just looking so happy and excited. I mean, he had that childlike aspect to him.
That's the word.
Of pure enjoyment of the moment that he was in.
Yeah, he was good at that. He was good at the being in the moment thing.
Yeah. And then down at the bottom we're in our individual little sleeping car rooms, except I put you and Randy in the family room.
Yeah.
And that was our hangout room.
And I graciously took the top bunk because I'm sort of wired that way. It's like, no, I'll sleep up there, even though I have to pee like 3 times a night and bonk my head on the ceiling every time I did have to get down. But it was so fun. And the great thing about this trip was we had all this time to hang out on the train and watch the world go by and just talk about stuff. And then we get off and paint for the day and then get back on the next day. Right. And I couldn't recommend it enough. But of course, it was just a wonderful time for us to hang out. And you had dinner and breakfast and lunch if you were on the train at the time, and drinks for those who did. And it was spectacular.
The one other thing I wanted to point out on the top photo is that I've done this trip many times. And since we all like to paint the same thing, basically, when there was particularly good rusting machinery coming up, I would shout decrepitude. And everyone would grab their cameras and snap photos as we went along.
Yeah, for those of you listening, Charlie was he'd done that particular route enough that he could call it in advance. Like I always remembered the word is detritus, but you're right, decrepitude. On your right in 5 or whatever, and we'd all go, okay, thanks, Charlie.
Now over here, this next photograph, this next slide is there was an app that I made the mistake of showing you people.
Yeah.
Where you could add type.
Yeah.
To photographs.
Yeah.
You guys started making album covers.
Oh my God, they're so funny.
I lost you to album covers. You guys,
Yes.
you all were making smart ass album covers and sending them to each other and cracking each other up. So take
Oh
us
yeah.
through this, Larry.
Well, you know, overnight we had the option of going to sleep or staying up all night and having a blast. So we were up in the sort of the restaurant area where the tables were, and you could get a beer if you wanted, and or a glass of wine, and we'd sit there and we just started making these things, and it just once it got rolling, no pun intended. I don't know how many of these we made. I've got a whole bunch that, and Randy, one thing that I didn't include in here, but Randy came up with these titles that were really not only funny, but it's like way off left field kind of thinking. And it showed me, it's like, this guy's got more stuff than I even know. And I've known him forever. Just by the stuff that he would come up with extemporaneously, that was hilarious. And so, yeah, I don't know who came up with we had this photo shoot, and this started, I think I took a photo of Amy Erickson. And I just, at the time, I had this photo of her, and it was like looking up at night, and we were in, I don't know where we were, that great little hotel.
Winslow,
Winslow. Yeah, 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 of course.
La Posada in Winslow.
Yeah, La Posada. And then I go, God, that looks like an album cover. And then you showed us that thing. And so I did this one album cover, and then it just like exploded and everybody was on it. And then we did a photo shoot. And then, so there's this picture of me and Randy, and I think Randy came up with Jello Fight, which is to me just hilarious. Cause it's like, what the hell does that mean? But it's so off the cuff and so funny. And, I love the picture of Randy. I don't really like pictures of myself, but I do kind of resemble Thanos in this, so I'm not displeased. But that's Randy. That's our friendship right there. He's just a love, and that look on his face is what I will always remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
that
then
to the plein air convention.
yes, and this is the story that I posted on Facebook, which was Randy and I and Billy O'Donnell did this camping trip to Big Sur, and Randy goes, "Hey, the plein air convention is going on right now in Monterey. Let's go." I'm like, "Well, we don't have tickets." He's like, "Yeah, let's just go. We'll just walk in. It'll be fine." That was his like tagline for it. It'll be fine. And so we just drive all the way down to Monterey. We walk in, we run into Eric Rhodes, and Eric's like, "Hey, come on in." And so I'm like, "Are we busted, or are we going to go to plein air jail? What's going to happen here?" And then Eric goes, like, within an hour or two, he goes, "You know what? Next time you and Randy should do a thing." And I'm like, "Oh, fine." Randy comes up with this idea. He goes, "Hey, you know what we should do? We should paint a motorcycle on stage, because, he loves mechanical things." And I'm like, "Okay, that's not really my thing, but okay, I'll give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen?" So this is like, we have a year to sort of plan for this thing. He gets a guy with a motorcycle. I order racing jackets because I thought it'd be really funny. I really thought it'd be funny if we had fictitious sponsors for
Jump to that one then.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so we were coming up with, I tried to get patches made, men's oil was painting medium for men, I just thought it'd be really funny to have sponsors, because who doesn't have sponsors? Artists. We don't have sponsors. So anyway, we get these jackets and everything's sort of coming along. And then I get there ahead of Randy, and I go, "Randy, I'm looking at the stage and I'm not seeing a way to get a motorcycle." He's not there yet. "I'm not seeing a way to get a motorcycle on the stage." He goes, "That'll be fine." So it's like 8 p.m. the day before. We're on at 8 a.m. And I go, "Randy, we should probably have a backup plan." He goes, "No, it'll work out. It'll be fine." I'm like, "Dude, I'm wetting you. If I had Pampers on, I would have changed them 4 times. I was just wetting my pants like left and right, figuratively, and going, "This is not going to work out." And he goes, "It'll work out." So this guy shows up with the motorcycle with the monkey bars, and they're wider than the door. I'm like, "Dude, plan B time." He goes, "No, it'll be fine." So the guy figures out how to get the motorcycle on the stage. I'm like, "Okay, you were right." And the hotel comes in. I'm not sure we really checked with him on this. And the hotel comes in and goes, "That can't be here." And then Randy talks him into it, and they go, "Okay, but you have to drain the gas in the battery." And we didn't do that. And I'm going to say this now, Eric would kill me if he knew this back then. There was no gas cap for this thing. So it had a full tank of gas, no gas cap, and the battery was in it. we stuffed a cloth in there, and I'm just like, all night I'm going, it's going to explode. We're going to get sued. We're going to be responsible for everyone's death. That didn't happen, of course. That morning he goes, you know what? I think we should put a girl on it. Oh no, that night he goes, we should put a girl in there. And I'm like, I'm not a figurative painter. He goes, it'll be fine. So the whole theme of this was him going, it's going to work out. And me going, it's not going to work out, but it did work out in the end. And so we painted this thing. We had like an hour. You've done a stage thing, right? You can't see squat. The lights are glaring. There's a lot of people. I'm freaking out. Randy didn't seem to care much at all. And I probably had like 3 gin and tonics the night before or whatever. That didn't help. But as it turned out, it all worked out okay because Randy, the fearless leader, said it would, and it did. And there's our model. And
there's the paint. There's one of your paintings.
Yeah. And it did. And you got like Randy, we have like an hour and change, 15 minutes to do a painting of a motorcycle and a figure. And then I had some stupid ass idea of doing this mixed media thing where I started in acrylic and ended in oil. So I had to start the painting the night before, and I can't remember how I did it, but I essentially had 2 paintings. I had a dummy so I did the painting twice, and then I had an acrylic painting ground that I had to paint the figure into, and then repaint the whole motorcycle in like an hour and a half. It was crazy pants,
but you did, and it was fine.
It was fine. There it is. There's the picture of one of Randy's bigger still lifes. And I want to say it's the same girl who shot the picture, but I don't know, Tanya Koppel, if I got that right. But I love the picture. It's a beautiful shot, and it's just him in one of his many studios that he had. And where did we decide he lived? Vallejo? Crockett. That was in Crockett, I believe.
We're going back and forth between Vallejo and Crockett.
Yeah,
probably somebody who's watching will know. Probably Scott W. Pryor will know.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. I'm going to get rid of the slideshow then and just do our heads, and we'll chat for a moment. And
sure.
People should actually, I'm going to go to smaller heads because those are big heads. I like that better. Yeah. If people have other thoughts and remembrances, do post them here. And this will be up on YouTube forever, and people can always comment there. But yeah, I mean, he embodied sort of the ideal of what we try for, that he was a kind man.
Yes.
He was an extraordinary painter.
Yes.
And he retained that sense of wonder.
He did.
And his likes won't come again soon, I don't think.
I don't think so. And he was inclusive. Everyone was welcome. He made no judgments on anyone. And very accepting of all kinds, all walks, all people, and the kind of person that we need more of in the world. And so that will be sorely missed. Great sense of humor, laughed about everything, and we could find something funny in the worst things, which I think is an important skill. We need it. We need it now more than ever, And he was a joy. I loved making him laugh. I loved laughing with him, and everybody that I spoke to, when I posted this sort of tribute to him, and I can't even tell you how many comments about. I took a class with Randy, and he was so giving, and I learned so much, and just over and over and over again. Greatly loved human being, part of this circle, this tribe that we are in, an important link in that chain, and without it, it's not gonna ever feel the same.
Right.
So he will be really missed.
Right. Well, I think all we have to do is all we can do is to march forward, keeping him as an example, both for ourselves and holding him in our hearts as we move onward through the fog. So thanks so much. Thanks so much, Larry. Really.
Yeah, Charlie, it's great. Thanks for setting this up.
And everybody out there, thank you for tuning in, and happy holidays, and bless you all.
Yes.
They say.
Call your friends, tell them you love them, even the annoying ones. Embrace people, hug your friends.
And feed the cats.
Feed the cats. Yeah, he did that too.
All right. All right. We'll see you all. Thank
All
you
right.
all so much.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Betty Sue. Back in the back there.
Oh, wait, someone, Marty Walker. Let's see. Frequent Sacramento hanging out at Mura's. This taking classes from home. Also regret not taking advantage of those opportunities. So take advantage of those opportunities, ladies and
Yes,
gentlemen.
there's the lesson.
All right.
Love your
Bye-bye.
friends. Okay.